So, hello. If you guys can tell by my recent last 3 videos, I have been reading so much recently. This month I read 5 different books, all from the library because my library literally lets me check out 22 books at a time, which is insane. So definitely recommend reading books and getting them from the library because each of these books cost like over $20 if I would have bought them, but I'm sure you guys know that. But anyway, I thought I would like review them, talk about them. Some of them were super good, like the best books I've read so far. And yeah, I'm not gonna give any spoilers because I want you guys to be able to read them if it sounds like you would like them. We're just gonna get into this. I would say I recommend all of these. They're pretty good, but we're just gonna talk about them. First we have The Invisible Life of Addie larae. This book is like probably one of the most popular books in this pile, and it's the first book I read this month. It is about a girl who every time people stop seeing her, they forget who she is. So anytime she's like not in their line of sight, they like forget she existed. And so it talks about her life like always having to start over and not having like any attachments to anything or anyone. So fascinating because it's like basically a person going through life on their own, and you find out why this happened to her, which I think is like one of the more interesting parts of the story, is just finding out like her backstory. It's super kind of sad and depressing. So that's like the only bad thing. It also is kind of like slow. The book, it has like a really long beginning, but I feel like you need to get that to have an impact on the middle and end. The whole book kind of follows how her biggest like struggle of not being remembered is the fact that like no part of her made an impact on Earth no matter how long she's been alive. And throughout the book you realize that even though she didn't realize it, in different ways she did make an impact. And so I think that's also a super like beautiful thing about the book, and I just really loved it. Okay, the next book I read, another pretty popular one that I've seen a lot, is Love in Other Words, and this one is so beautiful as well. Like the whole story of it I just really enjoyed. It's about a girl who's, I think she's in the medical field, and it flashes between her life now in the medical field and then her life as a kid growing up at her summer home with her dad. And it's really cool. It talks about her first love and her journey with like dealing with how that person fits into her life now, and it had like a lot of surprises and stuff at the end, which I thought that was really cool. I love when books have like a twist or a surprise. I like how it really makes you feel connected to the characters, and I like the whole book is kind of like the guy chasing the girl, like that type of book trope. I also enjoyed sometimes throughout books I get really annoyed with like the main character, like how they speak, if they're super prideful or like annoying, you know, but this, I really liked the way this was like narrated and said. It just was like I said, a beautiful story. I really liked it. I would say it's kind of like a light read but has really sensitive subjects in it. But again, I really enjoyed this one. The next one I read was Without Merit. This is another Colleen Hoover book. I'm trying to like get through all her books. And this is like a super interesting story. It starts off kind of weird, and throughout the entire book just a ton of secrets are revealed. It's about this girl who grows up in a smaller town and has kind of like a troubled family. Like she thinks her family is just really bad. Like she just really dislikes them. And this is kind of what I was talking about. I don't really like the narration of this book because the girl is super just like constantly angry at her family. But through the end of the book and throughout it, you see a lot of self-growth and her come to like accept them. And I think this book is interesting because there is a lot of like self-growth and secrets revealed, which I like. But I really just, the storyline for me, like I did not enjoy it. She likes this guy and he's like off limits, and it's just like kind of random and weird. I just didn't enjoy this story. But it does have a lot of surprises and like shock factors. So if you like that, you may like the book. But for me, it was not my favorite Colleen Hoover book, but it's not terrible. The next one we have was one of my favorites, but also like interesting. This is In 5 Years, another super popular book that I've heard a lot of people talk about. It's pretty short. I read this in like a few hours. I think there's only like 200 pages or something. But it's about this girl, and she's super like a control freak, obsessed with numbers. And she has this like perfect life set up for her. She's like getting married, she has an incredible job, all of this stuff. And she lives in New York. And then one night after a big event happens, she sees 5 years into the future and it's with a completely different guy. And so throughout the book, you see her kind of put her life on hold because she's trying to figure out how to avoid what's going to happen in 5 years. And by the time that the 5 years arrives, she realizes it's nothing like she expected. And so I just think it's super cool. It's kind of for people that always think about the future or are afraid of the future. And because I'm like, I worry a lot, I enjoyed this book because it just kind of proved like you can't control what's gonna happen. Things are never gonna be as planned. And this is one of the first books that made me cry. And once you read it, you'll see why. It has nothing to do with a boy, so yeah. But it's just such a beautiful story. It has different aspects of friendship, self-growth, jobs, just talks about literally everything in such a short amount of time. And this is like a large print book too, so it's probably even shorter than 200 pages. Beautiful story. I think this is like my top one out of all of these. The last one, the most recent one I read, is Heartbones. Surprise, another Colleen Hoover book. I liked this definitely a lot more than the other book, the other Colleen Hoover book that I read this month. It's basically about a girl who has a really hard childhood and different things that she had to do to even just survive. And throughout the book, it talks about her reconnecting with other family and trying to see where she fits in, and her meeting a guy who's kind of like had the same background as her, and talking about her like developing feelings for him. And yeah, it's kind of just about a book of like her trying not to be lonely anymore. I love the part in the book where it explains like where you realize why this book is called Heartbones, because for the longest time that title I was just like, what does it have to do with anything? And then once it mentions it for the first time, it's just like really cute and cool. But I like this. I thought it was a cool story. I didn't necessarily like love the relationship between the two main characters. I didn't love that whole story of it, but I thought the whole like idea of the storyline was super creative. Nothing like anything I've ever read before, and I like this book. Definitely interesting. Okay, those were the books that I read this month. We will be back next month, and I hope, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to read more than 5, but these are like due at the library, so I got to turn them in. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you once I've read more books.